Hi, welcome everyone to Nikki Loves Books. I'm of course Nikki, and today we are going to be going over what happened in Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas. So this is book 2 in the Throne of Glass series. I have already done a recap and a book review of Throne of Glass book 1 in the series. So this is book 2, and of course I will be doing a book review, and it will be linked below as soon as it's up on YouTube. So thank you all so much for joining me for this book recap. Before we get into Crown of Midnight, I do want to let you know that I love every book in this series. Crown of Midnight is no exception. I can say I enjoyed Crown of Midnight more than Throne of Glass. And the reason being is that there's a lot more lore, a lot more history revealed about Aurelia in Crown of Midnight than Throne of Glass. And of course it makes sense. Throne of Glass was the foundation, the very tip of it. It had to get us interested. So Crown of Midnight does spend a little bit more explaining some other things about the universe of Throne of Glass. So I'm really excited to share with all of you the highlights of Crown of Midnight, but also all the little tiny details that make up the world as a whole. So before we jump on into Crown of Midnight, please remember that this is a book recap. This is not a review, and there are a lot of spoilers. Like, I'm going to be spoiling everything for you. If you don't like spoilers, please stop watching. I would love for you to stay, but I also don't want to spoil something that you don't want spoiled. You can check out my Crown of Midnight book review that will not have spoilers, and again, that will be linked below as soon as it's up on YouTube. Crown of Midnight opens up with Selena Sardathian, our heroine, on a mission. So if you recall, she is King's champion now. So she is the assassin of the king, basically. So the King of Ardlan is having her take out anyone who's basically enemies to the throne. You know, anyone that he deems a traitor or a rebel, he asks her to go kill and assassinate, because he's a tyrant and he's corrupt and he's evil. You know, so of course we're like, Selena, why the are you helping him? But we do need to take into account that the King of Ardlan did very blatantly tell Selena that he wouldn't necessarily kill her if she stepped on line. He would kill Chaol, her friend. And HEIR is also one of her friends that I'm sure that he would have no problem killing. Dorian, the prince, is also her friend. I don't know how far the King of Ardlan would go and actually kill his son, but it's absolutely possible. I wouldn't put it past him. He tends to be quite the monster, and we don't know what his limits are. So Selena is working for the King of Ardlan. She's under contract. She doesn't really have a choice if she wants to keep her friends safe. However, we do actually get a chance to find out that happily Selena is rebelling, and so she's actually not in fact killing her marks. Selena is staging the deaths of these targets and actually helping them escape the King of Ardlan. When she finds her target, she is giving them a choice of either death or flee. You know, obviously with them fleeing, they have to pretend they died, so they're not welcome to use their names again. They have to sever all contact with anyone they knew, give up their whole entire life, yada yada yada. But you know, when it comes to death or life, everyone's going to choose life. So we do find out that Selena is rebelling in the way that she can, and Selena's been doing a really good job of covering her tracks, because again, she is trying to protect her friends, but she doesn't want to work for the man who destroyed her life, who killed her family. And so she does go to, you know, the death houses, funeral houses, whatever you want to call them, and finds bodies that look similar to her targets, and, you know, mutilates them a little bit and brings them to the King of Ardlan, along with usually, you know, their family ring or something like that, and say, here's my proof that they're dead, you know. And so far as we can tell, the King of Ardlan is buying this. So is everyone else. So Chaol and Dorian are kind of like, wow, you know, she really is a cold-hearted assassin. You know, she's a little intimidating, a little scary. And so everyone's buying this charade, and it's working out in Selena's favor of she's not doing what the King of Ardlan is telling her to do. So it's kind of a win-win. We also find out that Selena and Chaol have continued their friendship, so they're spending a lot of time together, and they do continue training together. we do see that things are pretty icy between her and Dorian. So if you remember, Dorian and Selena in Throne of Glass Book 1 were an item. I, of course, shipped them. I loved them together. I thought they were really cute together, but I ship everyone. So Selena and Dorian did break up at the end of Throne of Glass Book 1. Dorian still seems pretty smitten with Selena, and Selena only wants him as a friend, and so she's having problems dealing with his kind of like puppy eyes. So she's still kind of having problems being friends with Dorian because Dorian obviously still wants her. Dorian still has feelings for her that she cannot reciprocate. Again, I explained this in the Throne of Glass Book 1 recap of why that was the situation. So don't forget to check out that recap. Speaking of Dorian, we do meet a new person. His name is Lord Roland Havellard. So he is Dorian's cousin. So Roland is at the castle to be part of the King's Council. And Chaol hates him, and we do find out it was because Chaol found the woman he loved in Roland's bed with him. And so Chaol hates Roland's guts. Unfortunately, Dorian is spending a lot of time with Roland because he can't actually stand the tension and feelings between Chaol and Selena that they tend to be blind to. But Dorian's kind of like, dude, you guys like each other, and it's just there, like, hello. So Dorian kind of sees the writing on the wall, and the other two are oblivious to it. So Dorian is spending quite a bit of time with Roland, and it actually works out in his favor because he actually finds an ally against his father and the other council members. So in Crown of Midnight, we also get some updates of some things that we learned about in Throne of Glass, and actually even read about if you read the novellas that are prequels to the Throne of Glass series. And that collection is, of course, in the Assassin's Blade. And I do have a recap and a review of the Assassin's Blade, so find that on my channel. So the update we get is that Farron, the man who tortured and killed Sam, who was Selena's first love and companion, is dead. So we do find out that Farron has died, and he was actually killed by Wesley, who worked for Arobin Hamel. So Arobin Hamel is, of course, the king of assassins. He is the man who raised Selena. And Selena at this point does also know that Arobin was who betrayed her. So she knows that Arobin was the one who planned everything, who planned Sam getting tortured and murdered, and then also Selena then, when she goes to kill Farron, that it was a trap for her, and that's how she ended up in the salt mines in the labor camp before, of course, Chaol and Dorian pulled her out, which happened in Throne of Glass. So we find out that Farron is dead, and Farron is killed again by Wesley, who was Arobin's personal guard. And then sadly, Wesley was then brutally killed by Arobin. Like, it's yucky what they do to him. He was alive for, and it was a slow, painful death. So Farron is dead, so yay, he was a horrible human being. But then Wesley pays with it for his life, and he was a good human being. So that's pretty much a bummer. It's also very apparent that Selena, of course, still wants revenge against Arobin. So, Farron's gone, okay, that's great, but she still got beef with Arobin. But there's also this dynamic of father figure there, so of course she is afraid to get down to the dirty business with him because her father figure betrayed her. The story continues on with Selena making a trip down to the tomb. So if we remember from Throne of Glass, there is a tapestry in Selena's room. Hidden behind the tapestry is a door that leads into passageways that have been forgotten. And through these passageways, there's a tomb that holds Alina and Gavin's sarcophagi. So Selena goes there to talk to Alina because she witnessed a very creepy person in the castle near the library. So this creature slash person was wearing a cloak and had a humanoid body, but definitely kind of hissed and growled like an animal. And the amulet that Alina had given Selena glowed. And so Selena's like, oh, I should probably go check in with Alina and find out what the heck was that all about. And Alina is not in the tomb. However, she meets Mort. So Selena meets Mort, and Mort is a door knocker. So he's a door knocker that is animated through word marks, and he is very sarcastic, very cryptic, and not all that helpful, but definitely likes to berate Selena. And so Selena meets Mort, and Mort has a message to Selena. This message does come from Alina, and the message is, Cain and the Ridderak were just the beginning. There is a even darker and deadlier power coming, and be ready. So totally not helpful, very cryptic, and Selena basically tells Mort and Alina to go F themselves, and she's not going to be sent on a fool's errand. She's going to continue doing what she's doing, and she's just more interested in her own freedom than necessarily whatever Alina wants. From there, Selena does go visit Caltaine in the dungeon. So if you remember from Throne of Glass, Caltaine was the woman who poisoned Selena right before Selena fought Cain. And then Duke Parrington threw Caltaine under the bus, and Caltaine has now been in the dungeons ever since. So Selena goes to Caltaine in the dungeons to ask Caltaine specifically about Roland, because Selena doesn't trust Roland. And Caltaine doesn't really answer any of your questions, but keeps complaining about her headaches that she's had since we met her in Throne of Glass. And then she keeps talking about hearing flapping wings. And Selena, of course, is in this dungeon like, what are you talking about, woman? But Caltaine, is just talking about flapping wings, and Selena just kind of figures Caltaine has lost her mind. And Selena, being the good person she is, notices that Caltaine is cold and therefore gives Caltaine her cloak. Caltaine then responds saying, sometimes I think they brought me here not to marry Parrington, but for some other purpose. They want to use me. So again, another cryptic message that Selena gets, and Selena's just kind of like, okay, I'm just going to move on with my life and not worry about all these weird things happening. So in other news, Selena and Nehemia are still friends, and they continue to spend quite a bit of time together. Some things to note that are important is Nehemia talks about Terrasan, so the kingdom that Selena is originally from, and how Terrasan was really the only force that Ardaland had to worry about. And of course, Ardaland had taken out the kingdom of Terrasan first thing before he conquered anywhere else. And Nehemia kind of mentions that if Terrasan were ever to rise again, they would actually stand a chance against Ardaland. Nehemia also mentions Wendelin, the kingdom across the sea, and how they have ignored and continue to ignore any calls for aid from Aurelia to stop the king of Ardaland. So Selena's next target as King's Champion is a famous courtesan named Archer Finn, who Selena actually knew back when she was working for the Guild of Assassins. So Selena sets up to bump into him. They make dinner plans together as old friends. And after dinner, Selena does tell Archer that she was sent to kill him on orders by the King of Ardaland. She gives him, of course, the choice as all others. You can flee and fake your death, or die. Choose. Archer, of course, wants to flee, but he needs time to get his affairs together, so he asks Selena for some time. She does agree, but only if he feeds her information about the rebels. So Archer, of course, agrees to these terms and actually tells her about a rebel group who are looking to find Aileen Glanthinius, the lost heir of Terrasan, and put her back on the throne. It is universally accepted that she is dead, but this rebel group does believe she is alive and in hiding. So upon hearing about this, Selena then, of course, continues to work with Archer to find more information about this rebel group. And then she does continue looking into that creepy hooded figure that she saw in the castle. So she's kind of curious about what it is. Is it a danger to her? it did growl at her and made her amulet glow. So, definitely something worth investigating. So she does go to the castle library, and she does remember that Chaol telling her about a legend that there's a second library underground of the castle library she's currently in. So, of course, she goes wandering around in the library, goes to the back, and lo and behold, finds a tapestry with a secret door behind. So, very similar to how her room's set up. So, she goes through the secret door behind this tapestry. It goes down and leads to another door made of solid iron, and unfortunately, it doesn't have a doorknob, so there is no way she can open it. And so she's kind of stumped, and then she kind of slides her blade down to kind of see if she can see anything underneath the crack of the door, and of course there's a set of eyes staring at her, and at that point she's like, yeah, peace out. So she leaves, doesn't go through the door. Meanwhile, we find out that Dorian has a nightmare, and he wakes up to his room being utterly freezing and frost surrounding his body. He, of course, is just like, that's weird. Okay, moving on with life, so that's something to know. Selena then ends up confiding in Nehemia, tells her that she hasn't been killing her targets, and then actually even takes Nehemia down to the secret passages linked to her room to show her the tomb of Alina and Gavin. And Nehemia then begins to teach Selena how to read word marks, because if we remember from Throne of Glass, that whole tomb is covered in word marks. So Dorian is at a council meeting. He is arguing with the King of Ardaland about something or another, gets really fed up, and storms out of the meeting. He then goes and punches a wall, like some people do when they're angry, and cracks the stone. So he realizes he has magic. And the super cool thing is that Dorian has the rarest and deadliest type of magic. He has raw magic, which raw magic can be shaped into whatever form the wielder desires, which is epically cool. So he's not confined to fire or ice or water or air or force. He has it all. His magic can be wielded and formed to whatever he needs. But of course he also doesn't know how to control it, which probably not a good thing. So Dorian has fantastic magic. Next up, we find Chaol meeting with the King of Ardaland. The King of Ardaland lets Chaol know that there is a legit threat to Nehemia's life, but don't tell anyone. So Chaol is ordered to not tell Nehemia or tell anyone that her life is at risk, and Chaol, being who he is, obeys. So he doesn't tell anyone that Nehemia's life has been threatened, and we go from there. Another notable event is a carnival comes to the castle, and it includes a fortune teller who is known as Baba Yellowlegs. She's an Iron Teeth witch. So this is the first time that we get to see a witch in the Throne of Glass series. So to give some background of the Witch Kingdom, which is in Aurelia, it fell after the bloodthirsty Iron Teeth witches had overthrown the peaceful Crocon witches. So the last Crocon queen cast a spell to ensure that as long as the Iron Teeth ruled the Witch Kingdom, the soil of their kingdom would remain barren. So of course, with the kingdom being barren, no one lives there. So no one can live in the Witch Kingdom, and so you have both sets of witches kind of, doing what they need to survive. Witches are the result of Valg. So Valg are the demons that we heard about in Throne of Glass. So we heard about the Dark Lord Erwin. He is the king of, or one of the kings, I should say, of the Valg. So the Valgs are demons that invaded Aurelia through one of the portals. And so witches are the result of Valg breeding with Fae. So that's how you get a witch. And they say that the Iron Teeth took more after the Valg. Witches do have long lifespans similar to the Valg and Fae. And the other thing to know is that the Iron Teeth are made up of 3 clans: the Yellowlegs, the Blackbeaks, and the Blue Bloods. So those are the 3 clans that make up the Iron Teeth Alliance. And Baba Yaga Lakes Baba Yellowlegs is actually the queen and leader of the Yellowlegs clan. So those are the witches. So meanwhile, Chaol's birthday comes up and Selena does plan an intimate dinner for her and Chaol. Chaol loves it. It's very romantic. It's beautiful and just something that Chaol has never had anyone do for him. And everything's going well, and then Selena drops the bombshell of telling Chaol, hey, you know, my job of killing these people, I haven't really been doing that. So she just drops this on him. You know, they're having a good night, and he's just like, oh my God, this is so sweet. And then, don't get mad, but I haven't been killing people like I should have been. So she tells him this, and Chaol is absolutely terrified for her. So he kind of is like, are you kidding me? So Chaol is terrified. And please note that he even worries about Dorian going up against the King of Ardland. And Dorian's the son of the King of Ardland. So Chaol is totally like, holy shit, you're going to get yourself killed, woman, or worse. And there's a lot of things that the King of Ardland can do to Selena to make her life miserable. So Chaol is terrified. Selena tells Chaol that her end game is to, especially right now, what she's doing with Archer is she's trying to get intel and information about rebels to use as leverage to either get herself out of her contract or at least get her contract shortened. So right now she is serving 4 years. So her contract says 4 years of servitude and then she can be free. So Selena kind of just says, you know, like, I'm trying to get this information so I can leave sooner. And Chaol does say that he would leave with her, and they kiss, and then they do actually jump right into a very intimate and physical relationship. And I do like that Chaol gets her consent. You know, there is a part before they get back to the castle together, and he asks, like, are you sure? You know, are you really willing to go this far tonight? And so I do like that they had that included. Then we find out that Dorian goes to Baba Yellowlegs to ask her questions about magic. Specifically, his questions lie around the realm of, there is no magic left over in Aurelia, but I have magic. You know, he doesn't tell her he has magic, but, you know, he's asking all these questions, and she's not stupid, you know, so she's kind of like, oh, the little prince thing has magic. That's good to know. Baba Yellowlegs does confirm that there's no magic in Aurelia, no witches have magic, and even some fae have been permanently trapped in their animal forms for years now, unable to transform back just because magic is absolutely gone in Aurelia. So kind of the next thing that was notable that happened was that Nehemia asked Selena to help her free Eloise from Ardland. So Eloise is a southern kingdom that, of course, Nehemia comes from and is the princess of Eloise. And Nehemia asks for Selena's help in, you know, freeing her kingdom and getting a crown back on her father's head. And Selena doesn't want to have this conversation, and Nehemia continues to push, continues to say things like darker things are coming, any scout or spy that we have sent into the Farron Gap never return, people in the valley below the Farron Gap keep talking about the HEIR wings. And so again, with this wing thing, if we remember, Kaltain keeps on talking about hearing wings, so things with wings. And Selena refuses. Selena refuses to promise Nehemia anything, and Nehemia goes so far as to calling Selena a coward, which cuts deeply, and Selena just storms off. You know, there's a lot of storming off in this book, apparently. The rebels that Selena has been gathering intel on and basically stalking do capture Chaol and demand Selena meet with them. Selena goes to meet with the rebels. Really, she's just there to tear them up and free Chaol, which she does free Chaol. But the rebels are given a chance to talk to her. Well, specifically Archer. You know, she sees Archer there and she's like, what the heck are you doing here? And he's like, yeah, hey, hi. So Archer informs Selena that Nehemia is actually part of the rebel group. And Selena, of course, is like, okay, then why isn't she here? Supposedly she's part of your group, so where is she? And Archer responds that, oh yeah, there was threats against her life. Your boyfriend Chaol knew and didn't tell you. And oh, also, he didn't tell you that Nehemia is being questioned tonight. That's why she's not here. And so Selena takes off running to the palace, knowing that her friend's in danger. Selena runs to the palace and is unfortunately too late. She gets to Nehemia's room and finds Nehemia mutilated and dead. When Chaol and Dorian enter the room, Selena snaps. She gouges 4 lines down Chaol's cheek and almost kills him with a blade through the chest. The only thing stopping her was actually Dorian's magic. So Dorian uses magic to stop the blade from going into Chaol's chest. So Selena is then knocked out, and she continues the next couple days being, of course, utterly depressed. She lost a friend, but Selena feels this deep sense of failure, that it was her job to protect her friends and that she didn't do it. And so Selena is miserable about that she feels like she failed yet again. So she's already had, of course, her family kills as a child, which of course she couldn't do anything. But then living through the death of Sam, her first love, and she couldn't protect him. And then here's a best friend, again, that she couldn't protect. So she's feeling like a failure. And then she's also being haunted by Nehemia's last words, "You're a coward." And so this is really kind of wearing on Selena. So Selena then goes from depression to then wanting, of course, what anyone would want in this situation, revenge. And so that gets her into action. She kind of puts it together of, she knows the assassin who did this, and it ends up being Grave, who was a champion in the King's Champion tournament that we saw in book 1. So she kind of recognized his work. I hate to say it that way, but his work on how Nehemia was killed, she recognized it as being Grave's. So she tracked down Grave and kills him, and that kind of gives her at least something to do. So she kind of starts getting pulled out of her depression. From there, she does find a riddle in the tomb of Alina and Gavin, and it gives the location of 3 powerful items, and Mort won't help her other than that. She's kind of like, what does this mean? And he was like, it's the location of 3 powerful items. And she's like, okay, I've got questions. And he, of course, is like me. So she goes to Baba Yellowlegs to ask questions about the riddle. And she finds out through her conversations with Baba Yellowlegs that it gives the locations to 3 word keys. Hey everyone, before we keep going on with what happened in Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas, I do want to remind you all to hit that subscribe button below. So if you remember from book 1 in Throne of Glass, is we have word marks. So word marks are symbols that hold power. They can be used for good or evil. It depends on the wielder. And so you had word marks, which are symbols that are powerful. So word marks can be used to do a lot of things, but specifically also open word gates. Word gates are portals between realms. So this is how the Valg came into Aurelia. And so now we have word keys. So these are the first we've heard of them. So word keys open the word gate. So all sorts of beings have come through the word gate over the eons, like I said. The worst of them being the Valg. So demons from another realm who were bent on conquering Aurelia. What they had done is the Valg had broke a piece of the word gate and split it into 3 slivers, or keys as they call them. And it was 3 because it was 1 for each of their kings. Using all 3 together, the Valg kings were able to open the word gates at will, thus allowing them to, of course, have an endless supply of their soldiers to pour into Aurelia, but they were also able to manipulate the power to strengthen their forces. And in a lot of ways, it was like power over life. So there's a lot of things that they could do with these keys. They're extremely powerful. Back in the day when this happened, of course, the Fae realized, like, holy shit, this is bad. So the Fae went after the keys specifically, realizing that they would never be able to stop the Valg unless they had the keys. So upon retrieving the keys, the Fae Queen Maeve is able to banish the Valg to their realm, but she couldn't get the keys back in the gate. So Maeve, just so we all know and we're all on the same page, Maeve is the Fae Queen in Wendelin. So this is across the sea from Aurelia. So she couldn't put the keys back in the gate. She sends the keys across the sea to Aurelia with Roland Is, the first king of Terrasen. So that is where the keys went, and he, of course, was charged with hiding them. So these are all good things to know. So Selena finds out through Baba Yellowlegs that the keys are absolutely pure power, and that it can be shaped as the wielder wills it. You can conquer kingdoms, you can influence life, you can make life. It is, very, very powerful stuff. And Selena then kind of puts together, like, oh shit, I think the King of Ardalan actually has one. And Bobby Yellowlegs is like, you think? So there is that component, which of course is super important because, oh my god, he has one of them. And then Selena does kill Bobby Yellowlegs because, Bobby Yellowlegs knows a lot. Bobby Yellowlegs now knows that Selena knows a lot. We automatically kind of assume that Bobby Yellowlegs is an Iron Teeth witch, so she's probably not working for the good side. She's probably teaming up with the bad people. And then, of course, the other huge part of why Selena killed Bobby Yellowlegs was, of course, to protect Dorian. Bobby Yellowlegs did, tell Selena, like, oh, I saw your princeling. He had questions for me, and Selena knows, like, Bobby Yellowlegs is going to just sell whatever information she acquired from Dorian to the highest bidder. Baba Yellowlegs does die at Selena's hands, and Selena does actually get scratched by Baba Yellowlegs, so she has been marked by a witch. Now that Selena is a lot more aware of the dangers and that the King of Ardalan has at least one word key, Selena's like, okay, I need more information. I should probably, get to doing what Alina and Nehemia were trying to get me to do in the first place, which is find out what the big bad is. So Selena then goes down to the passages below the library. So she's going to the second library. She uses word marks to unlock that iron door. So that iron door that she can get through, she was like, word marks, open. And she is able to open the door. She goes through it, and it's basically a dungeon that goes on and on. It's passages after passages lined with dozens of iron doors, and it basically creates this spiral that just keeps going down farther and farther. At the center, she finds the base of that creepy clock tower. So again, if you remember in Throne of Glass book 1, there's a clock tower that they mentioned. Selena's like, ew, it's creepy. It's also got some weird ass gargoyles on it that do not foster any warm fuzzy feelings of guardianship. It's more like, oh my god, you're gonna kill me. So creepy clock tower with the gargoyles. So that is what Selena finds at the very center of this spiral down to the ground. It is the base of this clock tower. And she realizes that the clock tower is made of the same metal as the rings of the King of Ardalan, Duke Parrington, and then Cain. So something about this metal. Unbeknownst to Selena is that Dorian followed Selena into this passageway. And eventually that cloaked creature human thingy found them. So they are attacked by this cloaked creature. So Selena does kill it, but not after some serious fighting, Dorian using magic. And Selena does find out that this creature was made, and so it was human at some point, but we don't know how long ago that was, and it definitely wasn't acting human any longer. A little side note that we find out about is that Duke Parrington went to Morath, which is another place in Aurelia, and he did take Kaltain and Roland with him. And Selena is definitely worried at this point. She knows that the King of Ardlan has one of the keys. He's making things, and obviously with Dorian having magic, there's a likelihood that Roland might have magic, and Selena does find out that Kaltain's bloodline also contains magic. So Selena's kind of putting pieces together that, okay, the King of Ardlan is trying to get magic people. So to confirm her suspicion, Selena does make her way back down to the tomb of Alina and Gavin, knowing that the riddle mentioned that one of the word keys was hidden somewhere with Alina. And sure enough, Selena goes for Alina's crown. There's this compartment that opens up that should have held the word key, and the word key is gone. Mort does confirm that, yes, he found this years ago. So King of Ardlan for sure has one word key. There might even be a possibility that he has 2 of the 3 word keys, which is, of course, very bad. Selena at this point is kind of like, oh shit, I wish I had talked to Nehemia about this. I wish I had more information. And so Selena gets this wild, crazy idea to open a portal with word marks. She's like, yeah, opening a portal, talking to the dead. There shouldn't be any problem with that. Holy smokes, don't do it, woman. So she gets this crazy idea in her head, and Dorian is then woken up by Gavin and is told that Selena needs to be saved from herself. Get up now and go find her. Gavin tells Dorian where to find Selena. Dorian, of course, goes and grabs Chaol, and they rush to the secret passageways connected to Selena's room. Selena successfully opens a portal, and Nehemia is shown, and Nehemia is pretty much like, are you kidding me? You wanted to open this door because you missed me? Like, I miss you too, but don't ever do this again. So Nehemia is really like, don't ever do this again. You have no idea what's going to come through this portal. It's definitely not going to be me next time, so don't do it again. Nehemia does also reveal that she knew her fate, and she welcomed it for the greater good. So Nehemia knew that she was going to die the way that she did, which is really sad. Meanwhile, Nehemia leaves, and Selena's like, oh no, and Archer sneaks up on Selena. So we found out that Nehemia had shown Archer these passageways, and that also Archer has been following Selena around. It turns out the guy wants the word keys, so he is wanting the power for himself, and he admits to killing Nehemia because she was getting in his way. Of course, Nehemia is like, no, we're not going to use the word keys, and Archer didn't like that. He wanted to use them. He also reveals that he knows Selena's true identity. So while they're having this conversation, this portal's still open, and problem. So a demon comes through the portal, go figure, and attacks. Archer takes off running. During Chaol and Selena all try to fight it. This thing is strong as heck. They're having a hard time. Creature grabs Fleetfoot. So Selena's puppy gets taken by the creature, and it drags Fleetfoot through the portal with it. And Chaol, being the guy he is, goes running after Fleetfoot, no questions asked, which of course then leads Selena to run after them. This is like her worst fear, having another friend in peril, having her dog in peril, and her not being able to save them. So she goes running through this portal, and lo and behold, this place is not Aurelia, so magic is on the table. And so Selena erupts with her magic, which is wildfire. So she's got this blue, hot fire that comes out of her. And the biggest kicker is that Selena is Fae. So without magic having a hold, she erupts into her Fae form. She does save Chaol and Fleetfoot, and with Dorian's help, they are able to close the portal. Selena then immediately goes after Archer and kills him, which, good riddance. Selena and Chaol talk a little bit after this event. Chaol does go on to try to tell Selena that he loves her, but Selena kind of stops him, shuts him down, And they both kind of realize what they had is broken. There's no trust there. They were genuinely in love, but when you don't have trust, you can't really continue a relationship. As an update on the King of Ardland, we find out that he's a little bit pissy because he was supposed to meet with Baba Yellowlegs, and well, she didn't show up. And this meeting was to create an alliance, he was hoping, with the witches because he has wyverns and they need riders. So this does explain all the wings people have been hearing in the Farron Gap. So he has wyverns. We also find out that he knows that Selena's mark, so the word mark that showed on her forehead when she was fighting Cain, he found out that it means nameless or unnamed. And quite frankly, he doesn't seem to care. He's just like, cool, she has a word mark, float on her head, doesn't mean anything, moving on with life. From there, we have Chaol proposing to the King of Ardland to send Selena to Wendelin to infiltrate and to actually kill their king and heir. So this is a bold move. The King of Ardland, of course, takes this as like, oh my god, this is a great idea. The council members approve. Chaol's reasoning behind this is he now knows that Selena is Fae, and he, again, is terrified for Selena's well-being. Even though they're not together, doesn't mean he stopped loving her. So he is doing the only thing he knows how to protect her. He wants her out of Aurelia. He wants her off this continent. He wants her with the Fae across the sea. So he's thinking that this is a way to have Selena run and not have to come back. So Chaol is thinking that he's saving Selena's life. Selena at this point, with Nehemiah's sacrifice, with now knowing what the stakes are and realizing that she still has a lot to lose. You know, she still cares about Dorian. She still cares about Chaol. You know, Selena has really embraced her responsibility. Like, you know, not happy about it, but she's not running from it as much. You know, so Selena is told that she's going to go to Wendelin and do this. Before she leaves, she promises to Nehemiah that she will free Eloise. And when she says goodbye to Dorian, she says, I will come back for you. And then right before her ship sails to Wendelin, Selena tells Chaol everything. So she tells him about the word mark, she tells him about the ward gate, she tells him about the word keys. She then gives Chaol the eye of Alina and, you know, says it will protect you, please wear this, and then leaves him with a date. And she gets on the ship and goes. So Chaol has no ability to ask questions, to be like, what the hell just happened? What, like, you just dumped, like, she just diarrheaed in from her mouth and just like told him all this stuff and was like, okay, bye, have fun. You know, and of course it was her thinking that if something happened to her in Wendelin that someone should know, you know, and Chaol was the person that she trusts the most with this information. So she tells Chaol, gives him a date, and then runs away. Chaol does believe Selena about everything, but he couldn't quite figure out, why did he give me this date? What does this date have anything to do with anything? And so Chaol then, you know, starts trying to connect dots, and he figures it out. Selena is in fact Aileen, Ash River, Galanthanius, heir and rightful queen of Terrasen, the greatest living threat to Ardland. Dun dun dun. So and this is where Crown of Midnight ends. It's so exciting. We of course are like, oh my god, you know, Selena is Aileen. She could take the throne of Terrasen. She could make a difference. She could save the world. Oh my god, there's so many possibilities. But then you also have, oh my god, Chaol knows this. Chaol, who has constantly always done what he's told. He's always obeyed. He's always done what was the best for Ardland. And so him realizing that Selena is biggest threat to Ardland is kind of like, oh god, what is he going to do with that information? And then of course he's realizing, I just sent Aileen, the rightful queen of Terrasen, to Wendelin, the only place that she could find allies. Gwendolyn is home to the Fae Queen Maeve. Maeve is Aileen's aunt. So Chaol's kind of probably having this like complete mind blown. Like he's probably like, oh my god, I cannot believe I just did this. Because I basically set it up where Aileen could actually get allies, come back and wreak havoc on Ardaland. And again, Chaol is still completely loyal to Ardaland. He hasn't really stepped out of line at all. So fascinating stuff. I'm hoping that you guys all liked this video. Of course, please, please, please comment. Let me know if there is something I missed that you thought was important. Or if you haven't read the books and you're enjoying these reviews, let me know. Let me know if there's something you would like me to do different. Let me know if you like the pictures of the different characters. I like doing that just to give everyone a visual. Of course, they might not be exactly what you might imagine those characters to look like, but they were the best models that I could find to represent those characters. And as always, subscribe, comment, like, whatever you want to do. I would love to have your support and keep doing these for you all. So please look forward to my Crown of Midnight review, which of course will be linked below once it's up and running. And then of course my book reviews and book recaps coming soon for the rest of the Throne of Glass series, only here at Nikki Loves Books.